Hi, my name is Angel Morgan, and I'm here to share with you insights from my professional instructional designer interview. I interviewed Dr. Chris Roddenberry, who is a community college professor at Wake Tech. He is teaching in the psychology department, and he's also a researcher and professional instructional designer part-time for a transportation management company. He has formal training in social psychology from UNC Chapel Hill, and he participated in a teaching program at the Center for Teaching and Learning during his PhD program. Also, he completed 30 hours of professional development at Wake Tech in Learning, Americans with Disabilities Act, and Universal Design for Learning. He's continuously participating in informal learning opportunities such as reading and collaborating with his peers. For the interview questions, I went to the Wake Tech website first and looked at his professional profile. And then based on what I read, I created questions geared toward his areas of expertise. So psychology, e-learning, and specifically his research grant related to e-learning. I then sent Dr. Roddenberry an interview protocol about a week before the interview so he'd have a chance to look at it. And when we met, we used the interview questions as a guide, but it was more of a conversation about design best practices for learner engagement and social interactions in e-learning, because that's really his research focus and his passion. We discussed a lot of theories that we had in common and applications of those theories in learning and design, specifically agile development and learner-centered instruction. The primary instructional design issues that we discussed were iterative development and evaluation, flexibility, collaboration, and social learning. In regards to iterative development and evaluation, we discussed that really iterative development fosters engagement with learners and other instructional stakeholders because it has repeated opportunities for interaction and making things better. Learner engagement and social interactions in iterative development help design teams create more meaningful learning-centered instruction. So constant involvement with the learner helps to really engage and make a better learner-focused product. In regards to flexibility, we discussed cognitive flexibility amongst the team members and the SMEs, so they need to really kind of have this open mindset and look at other people's point of view and have a flexible, adaptive mind. And then also we talked about the flexibility of delivery of instruction, and it is what you make it as an instructor. So his community college provides a syllabus and a textbook, but he's really the one who kind of orchestrates the full implementation, and knowing the learners in his specific class affords flexibility within the syllabus for learners to get the most out of the course. In regards to primary instructional design issues, we discussed also collaboration within the design team and between students in e-learning courses so that it engages them in active learning, and also between learners and instructors because that really provides opportunities for reciprocal knowledge sharing. Learners and instructors can learn from each other. It's not just the fact that the student is learning from the instructor. Instructors often make improvements in their course, as well as students bring up new things they weren't even aware of related to the course. Social learning helps to motivate students intrinsically because it provides them with a venue for social interaction and engagement. Social learning is a very important tool in the sense that we learn from each other, and positive social learning environments make the learner feel safe enough to participate in the social interactions and to engage in active learning. So social learning is a theory, and it also provides confidence, and it overall is sort of the heart of team and collaboration and knowledge growth. I also learned some things about theory versus practice. In theory, technology makes design easier and enhances learning. Practicality technology integration is challenging, and it often adds time to the development. Dr. Roddenberry noted that he uses an animation tool at his job at the transportation management company, and they often have this problem where if they embed animations at each part as they're iteratively developing the product, the animations provide a lot of skipping and blanks, just gaps in the content, so they actually have to upload all of the animations at the end after they actually complete the Captivate product so that there's not the gaps in the presentation. E-learning makes accessing instruction easy and eFit learning more efficient. In reality, instructors need to be designing for a variety of learning paths. Synchronous and asynchronous both allow for active learning and engaging learning delivery, but the design behind the instruction is what determines if it's really effective or not. Next, learners identify more with characters who have a similar race or ethnicity to their own. This theory was communicated and discussed based on his research grant that he works on that is creating an engagement enhanced teaching model, which I'll tell you about later in the presentation. But essentially this research project created a e-learning module called Get to Graduation. And Get to Graduation had 4 characters in it, and they were each of different varying ethnic backgrounds, and they each had a backstory to them, which the theory was that the learner who was participating in the e-learning course would choose a character that identified with their race or ethnicity. However, the end of the research conclusion was that the learners actually chose characters to participate in the learning that had a similar backstory to where they were coming from. So learners identified with the characters who share a similar story, and that people associate better if the narrative or the personal story of the character fits in with the mental models and their own personal narrative. So that was an intriguing discussion we had. So takeaways from this interview. Main impressions is instructional design is constantly evolving. It requires continuous learning mindset, so everything's always changing. Very similar to software development profession, which is where I currently work. Methodology, interactions, life cycles, almost everything is the same about it, which honestly doesn't surprise me when I reflect back on it, because it's still a product development process. And so there's needs for instruction, there's needs in software, and the fact that the SAM model, successive approximation model, was actually modeled after agile development. Key issues facing the profession are cognitive overload. So there's the whole concept of the internet and the web, and everybody has access to all of this content, and it's just overwhelming. So I think really for the profession, we have to really start focusing on designing for microlearning and really designing for highlighting meaningfulness in the instruction. And then as the field evolves, instructional designers need to be also analysts, evaluators, e-learning specialists, and project managers. So there's a ton of different hats an instructional designer has to wear. They don't have to be a specialist at any one of those, but they have to have an awareness of the processes involved and the various aspects of it, and be able to work with stakeholders that have those skills. Keys and concerns and problems. We need to keep sight of the human aspect of learning in light of the plethora of technology. Technology can enhance learning, but it certainly cannot, it's not a substitution. whole discussion about social learning theory really highlighted this. And then also, efficient learning is not always effective learning. So just because you put something online and you make it a quick how-to doesn't necessarily mean that it's effective. You've got to actually make connections with a person's schema in order to help them adapt and assimilate that knowledge. Okay. So my impressions of how instructional design work is applied in the field. Dr. Roddenberry recommended that novice designers need to be creative, have a flexible attitude, and be a good collaborator. So you really need to, it's more about what you add to it, not necessarily your entire skill set. There's a place for instructional design in almost every single facet of the world: government, industry, academia, higher education, K-12. So really there's openings and opportunities for instructional design everywhere. I've even actually discovered that knowledge of instructional design is great as an IT manager, because I'm constantly leading team meetings and having one-on-ones with my staff, and really coming in with that instructional design mindset helps focus on continuous improvement and just that interaction and that commonality we share, and that we both want to be learners. Variety of learning products can be created by instructional designers. So all levels, we create everything: infographics, microlearning, e-learning, you name it. And then at the heart of it, instructional design is really just being part of a team. So you contribute a part of the big picture, and then so does everyone else. Artists, designers, technologists, analysts, learners, everyone contributes to the final product equally. In regard to today's instructional design practitioners, we're facing issues with keeping content and instruction learner-centric. Realistically, many businesses and political influences, though, kind of take over and impose constraints on the learning. We're faced with having to keep up with technology. There's always something new, but that doesn't mean it's always going to work the way we think it is, and it's always not going to work together with other things. Not every single learning development software is able to be deployed in every LMS, so there's a lot of compatibility to think about. Next, access to learners is difficult because they're busy and their time is often not accounted for in project schedules. So you really need to sort of be aware of that as you're designing. Okay, so theoretical considerations that I took away from my specific interview, and those are: social interactions and engagement are antecedents of active learning. So if you want active learning, you've got to engage. When designers apply psychological principles of social learning, they create learning environments that learners feel safe in and that have social interactions and engage. Social activities such as mentoring, developing relationships with instructors, and gathering of social capital are important to learning success factors for historically disadvantaged minorities. This is part of the research from Dr. Roddenberry. And then social learning provides learning with a psychological connection that leads to increased motivation and satisfaction with the learner experience. Social learning is a great opportunity to really form a central part of a team and make those mental connections to help learning be enhanced. One of the products, in addition to the Get to Graduation, was the Engagement Enhanced Teaching model. This model essentially says that high-touch behaviors such as expanded student orientations, responsive communication throughout the course, synchronous interaction, low-risk assignments, and an inclusive shell, in combination with technology tools like video delivery, mobile communications, and web conferences, lead to maximized learning outcomes in online